conversation today. So many of you out in the dating marketplace, and I call it dating marketplace because it's literally turned into that due to online dating. Now, online dating is a blessing and a curse. And the blessing is that we would, well, I mean, excuse me for being tongue-tied, but we would meet people we wouldn't otherwise meet in our daily lives. This allows us a connection to a variety of different people. But at the same time, it's a bit of a curse because online dating has turned into an avenue for hooking up with people who have a short-term mating strategy versus a long-term mating strategy. Did you hear that? A short-term strategy versus a long-term strategy. You see, the short-term strategy is based on attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection versus actually a fact-finding experience to determine alignment and compatibility. Let me repeat that: alignment and compatibility. What is alignment and compatibility? Alignment and compatibility is, do we share the same values in life? Do we share the same values? Now, most likely you're not going to share all the same values with the person, but do you share some core values together? Number two, a shared vision. You see, the difference between a short-term mating strategy and a long-term mating strategy is that there's actually a vision of where you'd like to see your life from a long-term perspective, including having a partner or a relationship in your life from that long-term perspective. Now, the challenge is emotional maturity when it comes to compatibility. This is the big challenge, and relationship skills. You know, when we look at human beings today, particularly those of us in midlife, and I always say midlife is after baby making years and before retirement, we come to the table with something known as baggage or luggage. And that baggage oftentimes isn't just the physical attributes in our life, it is also the emotional challenges we've experienced over a period of time. In fact, the average person has some sort of childhood wound or an adult trauma that makes their emotional regulation system dysregulated to some degree. Now, we trivialize this in some cases. Let me explain what I mean by trivialize this. We oftentimes give more attention to those who have experienced some significant abuse as being trauma, whether it was physical abuse or emotional abuse. We look at trauma that way. But quite frankly, even a treasured relationship that ends, even a good relationship that ends, can instill some level of trauma in our lives. It could dysregulate us in a variety of different ways. So, in fact, I want to share with you a blog post I had posted on my, oh shoot, where is it now? I posted it on my Facebook page. And let me, just give me a second to find it. I had pulled it up. But this might illustrate a point when it comes to that emotional baggage that many of us are experiencing. And it starts off: this morning, I asked myself the following question: why does modern dating feel so empty? Dating isn't broken because there are no good ones left. It's broken because we've made it a substitute for our soul. Most people aren't looking for love. They're looking for an escape, a soft place to hide from their unhealed wounds. They want validation, not union. They want chemistry, not clarity. They want attention, not alignment. We chase sparks instead of substance, thinking attraction equals purpose. But infatuation isn't intimacy, and the fantasy won't hold you when life burns. The truth: you don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And if we're disconnected from who we truly are, you'll keep pulling in partners who mirror your confusion. And you won't find the one until you become the one, whole, rooted, radiant. Love isn't something you fall into. It's something you rise into. And the real union doesn't begin when you match on an app. It begins the moment you stop outsourcing your worth and start embodying your truth. What is your truth? What is your core truth? One of the differences between men and women is that men have traditionally sought freedom to some degree. I would say, biologically speaking, we'd like to spread our seed. And what that means is we are highly addicted to physical pleasure in many cases. Highly addicted to physical pleasure. Not all men, but it is kind of the driving force within our mating structure. I don't think we've evolved that far from our ancestral cave person days, our Neanderthal days, particularly for men seeking variety, freedom, and that sort of regular physical connection with somebody. Now, in contrast, women have been kind of imprinted with commitment being one of their core needs, knowing that they can be with this person and they can feel safe with this person. They can feel safe with this person. Now, this isn't absolutes. There are plenty of women who are sexually free and can do whatever they want. I'm not suggesting that women don't have that freedom from a sexual perspective, but I'm saying traditionally, generally speaking, this is the case. And online dating acerbates this because it's allowed for, online dating and birth control kind of acerbates this because there's no consequence for physical intimacy 9 months later. And certainly for those of us in midlife, especially since most women after a certain age aren't going to have to worry about getting pregnant. Online dating has created an opportunity for hooking up versus real connection with another human being. So you're probably going, okay, Jonathan, what's the green flag you want us all to pay attention to? Well, the green flag I'd like you all to pay attention to from a dating perspective is to ascertain the following. Is this man committed to commitment? Is he committed to commitment? In other words, does he have a long-term mating strategy versus a short-term mating strategy? See, someone who has a short-term mating strategy, let's just live in the moment. Let's just have fun. Let's not worry about the future. Versus a person with a long-term mating strategy, they actually recognize that the minute you begin a physical connection with someone, and by the way, a first date is a physical connection. The minute you begin a physical connection with actually, let me rewind that for a second. A lot of people are just cyber dating. They're connecting through their devices. They have a cyber connection with another person. And because of that, there's this release of dopamine that flows through our body that many people can have a cyber connection. And the minute we have a cyber connection with somebody, we can get attached to them. And quite frankly, there's an emotional consequence to getting attached to someone who's not aligned in your values, who's not aligned in your vision, who's not compatible with you from a long-term perspective, and also if they don't have the emotional capacity to be in a relationship. So I'm inviting particularly women to hold space of identifying, does this man, is he committed to commitment? Is he committed to commitment? How do we determine that? Well, he actually says, I want a serious relationship. I want a serious relationship. Now, to me, a serious relationship is a relationship where you're spending regular time together. My narrative has always been the following, where you spend 3 or 4 days and nights a week together, doing shared activities, hobbies, mutual interest, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in your personal and professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy that leads to eventually either living together or getting married, or you can live together apart, but with a serious commitment to supporting one another. That to me is the difference between a serious relationship versus casual relationships. Hey, let's just have a good time. Let's see where it goes. Let's take it slow on an emotional level, and let's not invest in each other than just experiencing each other. I call those people, if you're not familiar with my chart, the 3 people actively dating. And by the way, this is not a fact, it's merely an opinion. There are the users, those are the love bombers, the players, the gold diggers, the entitled people. They only seek immediate pleasure. And then over here, the grower builders, I say that's about 20% of the population. They seek long-term commitment, emotionally grown up, good relationship skills, have their act together. But spenders are those people that want companionship, want connection, want sex, but they have no direction. They're fearful, they're uncertain. They usually have a dysfunctional life. And the reason why they're called spenders is they'll spend time with you. They'll spend time with you, but they have no real strategy, no plan from a long-term perspective. You know, over the years, I've been contacted by women from long distance. In fact, my most significant relationship was one that started off long distance. And why I'm bringing this up is that when we began communicating, my first reaction is, I don't want to do a long distance dating dynamic. I'm not looking to do that. I'm looking for something more permanent. By the way, it's 11:11 right now. I'm looking for something more permanent, meaning I want something that's have regular connection with one another. And so my point is, my very first phone call with this person, I'm like, I'm not looking to do this because I have a long-term mating strategy. I'd like to either live with someone or get married. And as we started to discuss the logistics of it, now she implied that she was capable of moving, that she had family, that she grew up in Los Angeles, so that at least we started on a foundation of talking about we had a long-term strategy before we ever met in person. Now, for people that live in the same city, you don't have to go that extensive. But in some cases, by the way, given that a lot of relationships are distance-based, geographically inconvenient, I think it's important to address these things certainly sooner rather than later before you begin getting physically attached to a person, and certainly more importantly, emotionally attached to a person. It's one of the benefits of long distance dating is you can actually open the door to these conversations to determine, is he committed to commitment? And I'm saying this, ladies, because men traditionally are weak in this area. Now, that's not to suggest there aren't good men out there, and that's not to suggest that there aren't men who are serious about commitment. I want you to know it's raining good men, it's raining good men, it's raining good men. They do exist. But at the same time, it requires, I believe, a little bit of due diligence. Now, the topic of this video is called Never Date a Man Without This Green Flag. And I just want to reiterate, the green flag is he committed to commitment? But I also don't want you to get too emotionally invested in a man who hasn't agreed to the following. And the reason being is, have you ever heard the phrase, women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment? Well, it used to be a man had to make a significant commitment of marriage before he got physical intimacy with someone. Now, nowadays, we can have physical intimacy without any commitment. We can have hooking up circumstances. We can have friends with benefits. Most people find themselves in either situationships or casual relationships. And a situationship is simply an undefined relationship, whereas a casual relationship might have some level of monogamy or exclusivity, but there's no real plan, there's no real purpose to take it other than just spending time with each other for companionship, connection, and physical, or for sex. So again, the green flag, is he committed to commitment? But another green flag, if he's willing to do this, and I want to share this with you. In the link below is something known as my dating vows, okay? And what my dating vows is an agreement two people make before they become physically intimate with one another. So if you've spent some time getting to know each other and you feel like you might have some compatibility, you both like sushi, you both like pickleball, you both like the Rolling Stones, or in my case, it would be Joe Jackson. And again, I'm speaking to a midlife demographic. I wouldn't even know who the current artists are today. But for those people that you have some of those me toos together, and you decide that you're going to explore a relationship. The dating vows are agreements you make to each other. So I'm going to recite them, and again, there's a link below in the show notes to get my dating vows, to get a copy of this. So they are simply agreements you make to each other, and it can go something like this. I state your name. Agree to explore the process of getting to know you from a truthful place with the intent to declare something serious in the next 3 to 6 months. I agree to explore the process of getting to know you from a truthful place. What that means is you're operating from a place of transparency. In other words, if something is material to the relationship, then it's important to be truthful to the other person. What does that look like? Hey, if you listen, I know this one's going to be hard, but if they're still married, in other words, they're not legally divorced, then ideally, we speak from a place of honesty and from a place of truthfulness. Maybe they're going through some contentious issues at work that might affect them from a financial perspective. Maybe we've got a health issue that might have long-term ramifications. For those of us in midlife, that's a very common thing. I have slightly high blood pressure, and I'm on blood pressure medication, and I go and have an echogram, every year to monitor my heart. And so it would be sharing these things with someone because it could be material to the relationship. I'm inviting you all to make agreements to one another. And the reason why to declare something serious in the next 3 to 6 months is men traditionally know if you are long-term, if men have a long-term mating strategy, in other words, they are committed to commitment, they usually know within 3 months, give or take 6 months, if they know you are somebody that they look at it from a long-term perspective. Again, those spenders and those users aren't looking at it from that vantage point. So again, this is from that, most men who have these green flags are, coming back to my chart, are the men that are mostly the grower builders, okay? They seek long-term commitment. They're emotionally grown up. They have good relationship skills. They have their act together. Okay. So number one is that. The next agreement that you make to each other is you agree to be monogamous sexually if you have regular sex together. Listen, I don't know about you, but I just don't want to catch cooties. I don't want to be with somebody who's having sex with multiple partners in their life, because especially if it's unprotected sex. So again, I believe if you're going to have regular sex with someone, then there's an agreement that you make to be monogamous. Now, I know a lot of people are disingenuous in this place, okay? I get it. That exists. But you know what? Good men, they have no problem agreeing to that. And good men also don't have a problem to agree, and this is the next agreement, I state your name, agree not to actively seek to meet and date others while we're in the dating process, including taking down our dating profiles. This is for those that met through a dating site, but there's an agreement not to actively go seek and meet others. And I'm going to hear, but Jonathan, I've been told by other coaches I should be circular dating, meaning I should be dating multiple men at the same time to weed them out. I don't subscribe to that, folks. I believe if two people agree to exploring a relationship together and they've begun a process of being physically intimate with one another, then I think you should agree to exclusivity. In other words, at least give that a little bit of a chance. I get why some of those coaches might encourage that. I don't subscribe to it, but I understand why, because you could get attached to the wrong person. But guess what? You have a greater chance of getting attached to the wrong person to some degree, because we are a population of human beings who are wounded from our childhood or our adult experiences. And as I said earlier in the blog, we oftentimes are dating from a vantage point of a lack of wholeness within us, looking for someone to complete us. And folks, I am radically guilty of this. I am so guilty of the following. I need you to love me so I can feel good about myself. I have operated from a codependent place. And that's why I'm very familiar with it. If you haven't read the book, and by the way, all the books I recommend are listed below. If you haven't read the book Codependent No More by Melody Beattie, I hope I pronounced her last name properly. I'm going to say that we human beings oftentimes are either codependent or the opposite is counterdependent. In other words, often counterdependent people tend to be avoidant, love attachment style folks. If you're not familiar with love attachment, I highly recommend reading the book Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. But we either operate from an anxious, needy place, that's codependency, and I'm just roughly speaking here, this isn't absolutes, and a counterdependent place like, I don't need you, so I'm going to keep space from you. So when you make these agreements, it's forging this together. It's forging holding hands together. And again, there's a few more of these as well. I, state your name, agree to speak up if this isn't working for me, versus pulling back, ghosting, and disappearing. You know, I recognize that when we begin dating someone, we can have doubts, we can have uncertainty. It's natural, especially when we're dealing with differences. You know, the reality is dating, dating is a process of overcoming your differences, whether you're an early bird or a night owl, whether you put the forks down versus you put the forks up. That's my joke. Whether you eat an absolutely clean, healthy life, in other words, all organic versus someone who eats processed foods. We all have differences, and we have different political points of view. We have different religious points of view or spirituality. Part of relationships is overcoming those differences and finding common ground with someone who shares your core values and your core vision and your core must-haves. Hey, it's 222 right now. Did you hear me say your core values, your core must-haves? I think it's important to identify what's your core must-have in a relationship. And are you committed to that? Is your relationship built on a foundation of, I think the purpose of a relationship, someone write this down. I think the purpose of a relationship is to be in service to help your partner get their needs met. Now, that doesn't mean you're responsible for your partner's needs, or their feelings, but you are in service to that. That's what committed to commitment is to be in service to the other person. That's why you join in together. We, again, from a dating vantage point, we oftentimes have a very self-serving process of attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection without the real understanding of what's the purpose of this relationship. Like, why are we doing this other than just spending time with one another? Do we have a purpose in all of this? And lastly, in my dating vows, and again, they're in the notes below, just click it somewhere in the middle in those notes, it says the dating vows. But it says, I agree to invest regular time in the process of getting to know you, which looks like shared activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy. It's making agreements with one another. And ladies, I get that 80% of men won't agree to this. And if they don't agree to it, then it's not a green flag. And by the way, when you print out, by the way, get a copy of it, print it out, and use this as part of your dating process. I mean, your vetting process to get to know someone. See, if we stop cavalierly dating from a point of entertainment and oftentimes egoic, selfish needs, then maybe we can connect with somebody at a true heart-centered level, a true place of saying, I'm here to open myself up to you on an emotional level. Are you a safe place to land? Can I trust you? And trust isn't just about fidelity. Trust is Does this person have my best interest at heart? Are they actually looking out for my best interest? I think that's what a significant, serious relationship is all about. And I'm here to just encourage that. And ladies, I want you to know I belong to a group, a community of couples. And in the last 10 years, almost every new couple that's joined the group has met through an online connection. Some of them are married now. Some of them are live together. Most everybody I know that, within this community met through an online connection, whether it was an online dating site, whether it was through social media. The reality is most of us don't live in an environment where we're surrounded by single eligible people. And so let's not discount this. Now, I just want to say one thing about online dating. Since the ending of my short-lived relationship at the beginning of the year, I dabbled looking online. I'm not really actively dating right now for myself, but I've looked. And sadly, I've looked at ladies' profiles, and I am saddened by how poorly curated, the poor effort women have put into their profiles. And this is true of men as well. I mean, theirs is just as bad. And it saddens me because we all want to feel a connection with another human being. We want to feel loved. And putting a poor representation of yourself goes back to what I was sharing earlier when I read my blog. It saddens me when I look at women's profiles and they do such a poor job of the photographs and the essay and the effort. And by the way, I said this before, men do the same thing, such a poor job. And it saddens me because, gosh, quality effort creates quality results. Quality effort creates quality results. And so I think it's important to say, look, I want to make a difference. And by the way, it doesn't take that much effort to create quality effort. It really doesn't take that much effort. It means just having a good friend of yours take some quality photographs of yourself, crisp quality pictures of yourself. And by the way, you can go and read other people's profiles and cut and paste all the good stuff you might read in someone else's profile. And then when it comes to initiating connection, be mindful. I swear to God, people nowadays, it's just hi. How's your day going? Fine. How's your day going? Fine. There's no real effort in connecting with another person. Be inquisitive, be complimentary, be enthusiastic. When you operate from curiosity, enthusiasm, you're going to generate better results. And I get it's frustrating out there. I get it. But ultimately, I'm going to say this. I still hold hope. I still hold space that there are wonderful people for all of us out there that could be a good life partner if we operate from a level of intentionality, not driven by ego, which is, as I said, attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection, but leading with the heart. Leading from a heart-centered, compassionate place can make a big difference in your life. Is this sinking in? Is this resonating with you? Please let me know. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's links below to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. There's a link to join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. There's a link to get my dating vows. It's in the notes. Just scroll through it and you can get a copy of my dating vows, which I just shared with you. And just remember, the green flags are, is he committed to commitment? And is he willing to recite the dating vows with you? I think these are amazing green flags to consider with any man going forward. Again, give me a thumbs up if you felt like this had value for you. All right, those who know my live format know it's time for Q&A. If you have a question, there's a little chat box in the corner. Write the word question, then post the question thereafter. Or you can purchase the super sticker, super chat. All the money's, there's a little $ in the chat box. All the money's from the super sticker, super chat goes to a scholarship fund in the name of my son, Connor Aslay. That's a picture of him with his brother. He's my son who passed away almost 7 years ago. And his honor, we donate to causes like the Hoffman Process Insight Institute and scholarships to coaching as well. And our goal is $50 for today. If 25 of you donated $2, we'd get there. Also, if you want to join the Love Seat and speak to me live, I just post a link right there and you can speak to me live. Sandy says, wait, did I miss something? I thought you were dating someone a couple weeks ago. Did that end already, or is it an old broadcast? Yes, we are now broadcasting in May of 2025. In January of 2025, I did meet someone, actually through social media. And we dated for about 8 weeks. We lived locally. I recognized a couple things. We were misaligned a little bit, but most importantly, I recognized that I was still carrying some residue, hurt from my past relationship. And actually, in the dating process, it triggered a lot of stuff for me. So it's one of the reasons why I've taken myself, off of the dating marketplace right now. I go look online every once in a while just because I feel curious, and it's I think it's part of it might be that I'd like to just have a friend, someone to hang out with. It would be nice. So I think I kind of dabble in it. I do believe it can be an addictive thing to be online dating when you get a lot of attention from somebody. But for the most part, to answer your question, Sandy, no, that ended weeks and weeks ago. So almost 2 months ago. So thank you so much for asking. Again, if you have a question, or if you want to join me on the Love Seat, I just posted another link. Lisa goes back earlier and says, hello, Jonathan. Yes, I agree. I think she was agreeing to the dating vows. Where are the dating vows, Gwen? They are in the show notes. So just click the link. Just open the screen. It will show you the show notes and you can see the dating vows listed there. So while I'm waiting for questions from those of you, and please, oh, Debbie's in the house. She just gave us a $20 super sticker. Thank you for the love. You're amazing. We love you. Thank you for all you do. Thank you so much, Debbie. Folks, I just have to give props to Debbie. By the way, one of the most generous people, she's always donating. And I want to give her props because there's just something about when we approach social media from a heart-centered place. And many of you have done that. And I can't begin to tell you how much it fills my soul, how many of you send out kind, caring, loving messages to me. I can't begin to tell you how that fills my soul. And why I'm sharing this is in a world of negativity. And I get it can feel so depressing out there. It can feel that way. I think we all need to hold a space of hope. Like, in other words, hold that vision of imagining yourself in the kind of relationship you seek. Imagine it's raining great men. It's raining emotionally available men. It's raining good men and women. It's raining good women. In other words, when we hold that space, we can certainly look at the dating process as the Hunger Games. I get it. And part of my work as a dating coach, and by the way, there's a link right there to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you, is that, dating is a process of discernment. It's not easy. But when you get aligned to who you are and what you want, when you are aligned to who you are and what you want, dating isn't about a numbers game. It's about a connection game. It's about an alignment game. And when you are aligned to who you are and what you want, then I think you become more of a magnetic attractor for the type of relationship you seek. Okay? Sandy's come back and says, totally understand what you're saying. This has been my issue as well. Every time I go out with somebody, it triggers the past. And I'm trying very hard to move forward on it. It's interesting. The woman I briefly dated, she said to me, I'm going to be candid with you. Very early on in the process, she said something. She goes, Jonathan, I think I'm your transition relationship from your past relationship. And it's interesting how we can have self-denial, because on some level, I didn't think that was the case. I'd honestly thought that I'd healed. And many of you know who followed my channel know that actually a week ago, I had received a message from my previous relationship, and we had a nice closure conversation, which I think has helped ground me from where I was at the beginning of the year. And so we all have residue. Many of us, let me reframe that. Many of us have residue from our past relationships. And the minute you begin dating someone, it can bring up all that residue to the surface. Sadly, and I made the mistake of doing this. I made comparisons. It's hard when you, and I'm going to be candid with you. I was deeply in love with my partner. I really saw a future with them. It was a very treasured relationship. And so as much as I tried to let it go, move on, not let it be part of my experience, it was very hard, because the minute you start connecting with someone, it's natural to make comparisons, and it isn't fair. It's not fair to the new person, but it's natural to experience this. I'm not proud of it. I'm not saying I was going in with that intent. I was never going in with the intent to be disingenuous with the person. In fact, I was very transparent early on. Before we ever really got physically intimate with someone, I told her where I was at, or at least where I thought I was at emotionally. But the minute you begin dating someone, all this stuff can begin to surface without you even like wanting it to. You might just go, God, I stop. Emotion, thoughts, go away. You don't want it to be here. In fact, that's what was happening for me to some degree. It was like I was in a wrestling match between what I desired and my wound. Did you hear that? I was in a wrestling match between what I desired and my wound. And it wasn't, and believe me, I've done a ton of personal development, self-help, spiritual work, and therapy, but sometimes the real work is when you're faced with it. And I believe it's healthy to take a step back, because I didn't want to create a false expectation for somebody else. And basically, I know I'm, kind of going on with this, but I just want to give you, okay, you get it. Sandy says, I get it. I get it. Danielle says, I'm sure anybody should have in mind to be with some guy or woman with bad, I am sure anybody should have in mind to be to some guy or woman with bad will like green, whatever, right? It's a bad intention for sure. Danielle, I apologize. I think you meant something different, but I wasn't able to get it. I recognize that when we type these messages with our thumbs, it can be rather disjointed. And I'm not sure what to glean with that. I think most people don't intentionally go in with, I think it's very common to go in very self-serving. It's kind of very common. We want our needs met. And so we operate from that place of my needs being met. But do we date from the perspective of, am I actually thinking about the other person's needs from the very beginning? Very rarely do we, because we've been indoctrinated to believe that chemistry equals relationship success. We've been indoctrinated that attraction, entertainment, romance, and physical connection leads to relationship success. And if you look at the core of couples who, really are surviving in their relationship and thriving, if you will, it's their capacity to overcome their differences. And so you have to recognize that relationship is a process of being able to negotiate and navigate your differences and come to agreements with one another. And I think when you come from that mindset, you have a greater chance for relationship success. Even Debbie says right here, it is healthy. Exactly. All right, I had some questions come in. While we're waiting for some questions, again, if you have a question, write the word question, then post the question thereafter. But here's a question that came in to the help desk. It says, part of me still believes real love is out there for me. But after so many disappointments, sometimes I wonder if I'm just fooling myself. How do I stay hopeful without getting crushed? Mm. That's a great question. And I can resonate with that question. How do we stay hopeful when we've had many disappointments? If you can relate to this, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up or just say in the chat box, I can relate. You know, I think it's a matter of flipping the story. We can focus on what's wrong or we can focus on what's right. We can focus on what went wrong, what didn't happen. We can focus on that, or we can focus from a place of, as I said earlier in this broadcast, it's raining great men, it's raining great men, it's raining great men. And for the men that's watching, it's raining great women, it's raining great women, it's raining great women. I mean, great. How about aligned with me, shares my values, has the same vision as I do, has the capacity to blend our lives together, and most importantly, has the emotional maturity and relationship skills to actually want to build the deep roots of trust. I'm going to repeat that. Has the emotional maturity and relationship skills to build the deep roots of trust. And then coming back to this person who wrote the question, I want you to write a list of what makes you a catch, what makes you a prize. Like really embody that. Many of you know, I did this in a previous video, but I reached out to a dear friend of mine. I'm pulling up my notes. And she's I got to tell you really quickly, I met a woman 20 years ago online. Our first date was not a love connection, but for whatever reason, we kept in touch with each other over the years. We live nearby and we have mutual friends and our children went to the same school. So we had this connection. This was 20 years ago. And over the years, we've just talked to each other on a regular basis about our lives. And in 20 years, she has morphed into my best friend, really my best friend, and it's not romantic. She lives with somebody. Over the years, she's had boyfriends, I've had girlfriends. But why I'm sharing this with you is I said to her, what do you think makes me a catch? And so I want to share this with you as an illustration of you doing the same for yourself. Coming back to this question, I want you to ask yourself, what makes you a catch? And even ask your friends. And this is what she said. She said, Jonathan, you have emotional depth and wisdom. You've lived through loss, betrayal, heartbreak, reinvention, and rebirth. You didn't let it harden you. That kind of emotional depth makes you rare. You don't shy away from pain, and you know how to hold space for someone else's pain. I was like, wow, what a sweet, I mean, like right off the bat, I'm like, okay, that feels true for me. And I invite you all, does that feel true for you? If it does, then embody that, embrace that as coming back to this woman's question, how do we hold hopefulness? Well, start asking yourself what makes you a catch. Embody what makes you a catch. I'm going to keep reading. So she said, number 2, you have relational maturity. You don't just talk about emotional intelligence, you live it. You've studied attachment theory. You reflect on your own patterns, and you've done the work most people avoid. That self-awareness means you're not looking for someone to complete you, but to meet you. And I'm like, wow. When she said that, I'm like, really, that feels true for me. By the way, this is a woman I've been through the Hoffman process. She's done on-site. I've done insight. She's done therapy. I've done therapy. I mean, we are each other's therapists in many ways. And when I say therapists, are our relational confidant to one another. Do you have a relationship confidant in your life? Well, if you don't, maybe I could be that for you. If you need some support, there's a link right here. Schedule a call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Even if you want to just bounce something off of me, reach out to me. Maybe we can shoot a video about it online for everyone else. Okay, number 3, she said, you have heart-centered strength. And I'm like, what's that? And she says, you're not afraid to be tender. That balance of masculine steadiness with open-hearted vulnerability. That's not just attractive, it's healing. And I was like, wow. And then she went on to say, you have humor and realness. You bring levity to heavy stuff. You're spicy, sharp, and raw in the best ways. You say what others often are too afraid to say, and you make people feel safe, seen, understood, and less alone. Look at, I want to say this to everybody who's watching. I understand the depths of aloneness. In other words, from a relational standpoint, I understand it on so many different ways because I've lived it, I've embodied it. And I recognize that we all need a hug. We all need a safe space to land, to just share our vulnerable self, to share our flawed, imperfect parts of ourselves without judgment. And even if you're going to judge, then judge with love. I even say this to my friend. I said, look, I'm going to judge you sometimes, but I judge you with love. It's natural to judge a little bit, but at the same time, if you love someone, you want to help them see their blind spots. You want to help them see the good in them. So she goes on to say, you have soulful purpose. You've turned your suffering into service. You want relationship not as a trophy, but as a container for growth, joy, and shared meaning. And that's magnetic. And lastly, she says, lived integrity. You've built yourself from the ground up more than once. You walk your talk, even when it hurts. That kind of character is the bedrock for long-term love. You're worthy not because you're perfect, but because you're present. You show up, you care deeply, and you're still open despite everything. That's rare, that's worthy, that's a damn catch. Wasn't that a sweet thing from her to say that? If you think it was sweet, to say, yes, I think that's sweet. But most importantly, I'm inviting you all to sit down with your closest, dearest friend and ask yourself, what makes you a catch? What makes you a catch? And then embrace it. Embrace that as your empowering message, as your mission statement, as your call to the universe. What makes me worthy? What makes me a catch? Lisa says, yes, very sweet. Debbie says, very sweet. And Aya says, too sweet. Well, thank you so much. Patty's in the house. 17 years of no dating, and I mistakenly thought I could reconcile with my ex-husband. It didn't work, and I went immediately into a situationship, which ended horribly. I have a lot of healing to do. By the way, my coffee mug says, don't make me go all psycho roommate on you. Patty, first off, I want to acknowledge that what you did is not uncommon. It's interesting. Last year I saw my ex-wife. We went out to dinner with a couple who also lost a child. The best man in my wedding also lost his youngest son. Talk about irony. My best man in my wedding, he and I I was born on August 1st. He was born on August 4th. We both had boys. I lost my youngest son. He lost his youngest son. And I went out to dinner with my ex. And for a moment there, I was like, God, I want to reconcile with her because we have history. We're family to one another. So it's natural. It's very natural to experience that and want that. Now, I want you to know that I don't think we're right for each other, but for a moment there, I experienced it. And so I get that. I get that. Please forgive me. I just have to send a message to somebody. And it's not surprising you went into a situationship because I don't think my sense is you're not grounded right now. You're not grounded in, and I would invite you to do the what makes me worthy of love exercise. What makes me a catch? And that's something, if you want some support, schedule a discovery call with me. We can do an exercise. It's like, what makes me a catch? What makes me worthy? Because I think if you're grounded in that, you're going to be in a space to be more prepared to be in a relationship from a very grounded, centered space. Okay. All right. What were your thoughts on what I just shared? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. All right. We have another question that came in. And if you have a question, write the word question, post the question thereafter. Okay, this question came. I'm starting to wonder if my standards are too high. I'm starting to wonder if my standards are too high. I don't want to settle, but I'm afraid if I don't, I'll end up alone. How do I figure out what's reasonable? I think I think what's most important, your highest standards should be your three most important must-haves in a relationship. Your three most important must-haves. Um, and by the way, to me, things like trustworthiness, honesty, integrity, transparency, those are a given. Those are a given. Okay. But I think you like for me, I'm just going to share mine, and I invite you to do the same. Is one of my core must-haves is a personal growth mindset. In other words, personal growth or personal growth, self-help, self-love, personal development, self-help, spirituality, therapy. In other words, you have a mindset for growth. That's probably my highest value. I also think my highest value is one of my highest needs is a connection to the divine and somebody who shares a connection to the divine. And I would say one other thing is somebody who is committed to being of service. Ideally, someone who would even join me on this path of helping others from the romantic world. I think I do have that strong desire. Not that I would put them on the channel per se, but I want someone who embraces my mission, like really embraces my mission. And we can both, like, they can have a different mission in life, but someone embraces the mission of being in service to others. That would probably be my three, if I'm just off the top of my head. So I invite you to come up with your three core must-haves, and that might help you in your process. Okay, that was a great question that came in. Patty has just responded. She said familiarity was easier than facing the unknown with dating. Yeah, kind of how I felt with my ex-wife. You know, we have all this history together, and in that moment, I was like, God, we could get back together, but I realized we are misaligned with one another, and that's okay. By the way, at the time of recording this, tomorrow is Mother's Day. And speaking of my ex-wife, I messaged her yesterday. I'm going to share this with everybody just because I talked about her. But I said, I'm going to be candid with you. This is kind of a Mother's Day message. I said, Dear Erin, Mother's Day is a few days away, and I can only imagine how hard this is for you. You knew Connor 9 months longer than I did. Yesterday, I saw a young boy who reminded me of him, and I pulled over on the side of the road and began crying. You were and are a great mom. I'm grateful to you. And while there's no need to respond to this message, just know you're a beautiful person inside and out. Wishing you a blessed day. Heart emoji. I share this with you because I think it's funny. Debbie says here, I can be civil with my ex, but there's no reason. But there's a reason he's an ex. Exactly. But I think I'm going to take it a step further, Debbie. I am civil. My ex and I are civil to each other. I think we've evolved since the passing of our son to something even a little bit deeper. But I honestly, how it got there? I just kept giving her love. Not from a place of wanting to get back together, but from a place of appreciation and gratitude. No matter how bad a relationship could be, there was a reason why two people did get together. And I believe if we can focus on the heart-centered love from a place of compassion, care, and understanding. And again, this isn't right for everybody. I know there are abusive circumstances out there, but if we operate from a place of appreciation for the good, I think we have a greater chance for our souls to be a little bit more aligned to love. Okay. Maria says, Jonathan, I think you should be the next senior bachelor. Not interested. I don't want my life public like that. Question, I thought you said you were seeing someone and going to a concert and a trip. Yeah, I said that 4 months ago back in, we are now in May, and I believe I said that in February. So February, March, April, May. So yeah, that was the case, Magic Entertainer, but not anymore. Debbie wants to say, you were definitely very passionate and compassionate. That didn't happen overnight. It was actually, I was in a relationship with a therapist over 10 years ago, and she was the one who encouraged me to heal the relationship with my ex-wife. And so I began with just little bits. Like, I think the greatest path to compassion is through gratitude. And I started to recognize all the wonderful things my ex-wife did instead of the things that were missing in our relationship. And by the way, I wasn't a good husband. I was a very unconscious human being, 30 some odd years ago. I was a very unconscious human being, more focused on being the provider, protector, and not necessarily being a good husband. I can own that. But I began to recognize the wonderful things she did as a mom. And now I praise her every single time we get on the phone. I always make sure to end with gratitude. That's just how I operate. It's an invitation for you all. Okay. All right. Jennifer says, question, in your recent short relationship that ended, what did you learn that will help you in your next relationship? It's interesting. Thank you for asking that. So one of the things I did different in this dynamic is I was very transparent early on. I was actually very transparent early on about some core wounds that I had. In fact, about the second week we began dating officially, I took a day to share where I was at emotionally and where I was at with my past relationship. I wanted to be radically transparent at where I was at. And so from that vantage point, I take that. But most importantly, I think my misalignment and confusion, I think what I want to do is more focus. Listen, I'm guilty of being seduced by the physical aspects of a relationship. I'm very susceptible to that. I think what's most important in any relationship going forward is building that core friendship first. It's so easy to get seduced by the physical side of a relationship. It is so damn like catnip in a way. And I hope going forward, it's building that friendship piece, that piece, and it starts by being transparent and building trust. So that I'm very grateful for in that experience. At least it was the beginning building blocks. But I think ultimately, and I don't know what that looks like yet. I'll be candid with you. When I say the words friendship, I'm still learning and understanding, what does it feel like to be friends with another person? Like, what does that really feel like? And I think it's when you can be honest with yourself and honest about who you are and see if there's an alignment there. I think that's ultimately it. Can you be honest with yourself? And I don't think I was really as honest with myself in the beginning process of getting to know this person. But I think it starts by being honest with yourself and then being honest and transparent with someone and see if they still like you, And if you like them, that's the other thing. If you like them in their honesty, and if you're more, and you're curious to go deeper together. And again, these are things that I'm still evolving and learning for myself. I think in my particular case, the reason why it didn't work, I still had residue from my past relationship. And my hope is I've moved past that. We'll see. But that's why I'm not even actively dating right now, because I'm still working on some stuff that I'm working on. Okay. Lisa says more men should be appreciative of the mother of their children. At the end, it's about the children and the parents' relationship. Exactly. Out of respect for my son, both of my boys there. I truly honor and admire their mother, and I come from that place of reverence, or appreciation, excuse me, and that's the way I operate. Okay. Debbie says life experiences change us for sure. And she says, absolutely. Well, that I appreciate. Hey, folks, this was my pre-Mother's Day video for you. Tomorrow's Mother's Day, for those, at least if you're watching the live. If you're watching the replay, it could be months from now, you're watching this. But I just want to wish all of you who are mothers out there, thank you for, obviously, only a woman can carry a child. And when I said about my ex, she knew my son 9 months longer than I did. What you go through is something I can't even imagine. And one of the beautiful facets of women is most of the time, especially those, you don't have to be a mother to be nurturing, kind, caring. But I certainly recognize that being a parent is work. It is work to actually want to raise good children, good, healthy, emotionally healthy children. And so to those mothers out there that had to experience childbirth, I give you your props. I am grateful I didn't have to do that. In my ex-wife's case, she had an epidural twice. It's so funny. I got to tell you this epidural story. So when Colin was born, when I was in the hospital room with her and is it an anesthesiologist who gives the epidural? And as I'm walking out, I see the man walking in. And this guy was gorgeous. I mean, like George Clooney from that doctor show that he was on, handsome. I'm like, this guy was so fucking handsome. And he walks in the room, and I think she was told to turn on her side. So he walks in the room, she's on her side, and he gives her the epidural. Now, I didn't see this, but when I went into the room and I said to her, oh my God, was that guy handsome or what? I mean, this guy was just gorgeous. And she goes, what? I didn't see him. I go, what do you mean you didn't see him? He goes, I had my back to the room. I didn't see what he looked like. I mean, I felt his presence and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, you missed out on like the most gorgeous guy on the planet. Anyways, fast forward to when Connor was born. We're at the same hospital. And I'm like, let's pray that you get the same doctor. And I didn't know his name or anything like that. But it was like, and unfortunately, it wasn't the same doctor. And I'm like, she missed out. But I got to tell you something. And I'm not attracted to men, but this guy was like damn good looking. This was 28 years ago. My son was born. So Colin was born. So anyway, I just thought you'd get a kick out of that, sharing that story. And I give props to my ex-wife for being a great mother on this Mother's Day. All right. Did you find value in this conversation? Never date a man with this green flag who doesn't have commitment and willing to read the dating vows. And if you need a copy of my dating vows, it's listed below. If you found value in this conversation, hey, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Post a comment below. I do my best to read them all in the first 24 hours. As always, if you find value in my videos, please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you can be notified of new videos. And if you want to connect with me directly, hey, there's links below. Schedule a discovery call with me. We can get on the phone and see if working with a coach is right for you. You can join my group called Midlife Love Mastery. You can follow me on social media. Get all the links in the show notes below. All right, I'm going to sign off this video as I always do. First, I've given myself a big, gigantic Jonathan Barrick of self-love. I'm going to reach into the camera and give you a hug of love if that's okay. I'm asking you to turn to someone, a pet, a teddy bear, a pillow. Give it or them a hug of love because hugs are a great source of love. And let's face it, we could all use more love in our lives. I want to give Debbie some props for the $20 super sticker. Thank you for the love. I also want to give props too. Patty and Lisa and Sandy and Alex and Inya and everybody, the Magic Entertainer and Jennifer and all those who ask questions. Maria, I said Magic Entertainer, everyone who participated. Thanks so much. Debt-free Natalie who participated. Big hugs. Wishing you all a super duper wonderful day. Be well. Thanks. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye.